Hello and welcome, everybody, to the Pick Six podcast, where right before we started recording, we were comparing the bad situation at wide receiver at Nebraska to an even worse situation at wide receiver at Iowa. And there's one program in America that's got a better situation, worse situation than the Huskers do, and that's the Hawkeyes. So there's a little bit of a Iowa dig to start the thing. Hello, everyone. Evan Bland, Tom Shatel, Sam McKewon here for the Pick Six podcast. It's Michigan week. And I don't know. It doesn't feel necessarily like a huge week, but this is the best team Nebraska's probably going to play this season. Number 2, Michigan, coming to town, 2:30, Fox game. That'll be fun to talk about. We'll cover the dynamics of that. We're going to talk about Nebraska men's and women's basketball a little bit. Need Tom's thoughts on Fred Hoiberg's presser yesterday. Upbeat. We'll talk a little Amy Williams as well. And then we'll hit a little baseball. I think volleyball is, they're playing on the road against Purdue and Indiana. They're great. We love them. We know how good they are. And then they'll play next week at Michigan and Michigan State. So we'll get back to them when they're back at home. But they're playing well and, as usual, dominating as the number 2 team in the country. I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Omaha World-Herald. You can do that at www.omaha.com/subscribe. Today is, September 27th? I don't even know. Mm-hmm. So if you get a subscription today, it is $1 for 6 months, and that subscription will take you all the way to the end of March. So when Nebraska makes the Final Four, you'll have coverage all the way through to that, Nebraska basketball. Or if you're a J-sker, when Creighton basketball makes the Final Four, and they might actually do that. If you're a Husker football fan and a Creighton basketball fan, this podcast is also for you. So subscribe to the Omaha World-Herald. Okay, gentlemen, here we are. It's a Wednesday, 3 days out from Jim Harbaugh, the quirkiest college football coach, east of Boulder, coming to town. Number 2 team in the country. They haven't lost a regular season game in almost 2 years. And what do you feel like the buzz is at this moment?
That's a good question. My wife goes. She's a loyal fan, and she's got tickets, and she's not really up for it. And her thinking is, I just hope it's not a bad game. And people expect this to be some kind of a blowout. I don't know that if Nebraska, if they don't turn it over, I don't expect it to be a blowout. I don't think Michigan scores that quickly, and they don't. If you're Michigan, you're looking at this game going, okay, we got a few other games coming up that are not big yet. They play Indiana, I think, and they play Minnesota next week, and all of their games are the big ones are like backloaded at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So they want to come here and just get in and get out. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to have anything crazy happen. Just like last week, workmanlike. Show up, block, run, score, defense, stop them, get on the bus, go home, fly home. So I don't think Michigan's going to come in here. There's no revenge deal. They're not trying to. The one thing I would say is when you're number 2, the playoff rankings will come out in about a month or maybe a few weeks. Then we'll start worried about point spreads, and we'll start worrying about how many, a margin of wins, and so that might come into factor a little bit Saturday. But I don't expect Harbaugh to come in here and try to score 70 or 60, and I don't think he will be able to. I think Nebraska's defense will play well. I just don't know if their offense can hang in there. But I just expect to grind them out. Long drives, probably a few punts for Nebraska, and we'll just see. I haven't picked a score yet, but you don't have to say.
I do, yeah. And I think the time of day matters too, right? The 21 game in Lincoln was so electric in part because it was a night game, and I think that was the debut of the light show at Memorial Stadium, and of course that came down to the end, and so you're gonna have to kind of muster that energy a little bit more for a 2:30 kick. And the other thing, I think too, it's sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum for how people see non-conference games. It's like, okay, you got to get through the Northern Illinois and the latex, but you also kind of got to get through these games where you're big underdogs and you kind of feel like it's maybe not going to be the most fun day. To get to those games in the second half, like you're talking about, Tom, where it feels like every game is going to be decided by a possession. That's kind of where you're going to make your season. So, like, I don't think anyone feels like Nebraska has measured up to what Michigan is doing at this point. And the other thing, and I'm writing about this week, I mean, some of the streaks that they've got going on against top competition, and it mounts. They've lost 22 straight to top 25 teams, 20 straight to top 25 Big Ten teams, 16 in a row, 11 straight to top 10 teams. And there's just no big signature wins. You got to go way back to Oregon in 2016, the last time that they won one of these. So it feels kind of like you're not going to pick it until they do it, right? And they haven't done it in so long. I think people are conditioned almost to look at these games as like, all right, let's just keep it competitive, kind of keep our heads down, and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's been a really strange series too. The first one I remember, I think it was Denard Robinson went off on them a little bit. The very first time they went to Ann Arbor. But they've won at Ann Arbor. Abdullah scores late that one year. Strange year. They won at Michigan and at Penn State in the same month, and then they come home and lose to somebody. But they've, Scott Frost got blown out there.
Obliterated. That was bad.
The first rock bottom.
The kicker,
Bill Moose meeting everybody at the bus.
The kicker
gotta
slips,
work.
The kicker slips and falls on the kickoff.
That's right.
So there have been some really weird game. The first time they came here, I think it was the year after. I think they beat Denard Robinson here.
They did.
So they beat them here. They had the big one a couple years ago that could have gone either way. That was a fun night. Just a great, Harbaugh's working the officials like Coach K every time out, every stoppage. He's yelling at him. It was great theater. And so this one is, I think you look at what Rule wants to do. This is kind of maybe not a preview, but this is, if you're Nebraska, you're hopeful this can be a game that will be fun down the road because Nebraska's going to play it the way Michigan does. And they've got to get better players and better offensive line play. But, Michigan has shown that in the playoff era, you can play this. You can play the old Schembechler way and win, and win big. And by the way, that's probably what I'm going to write about for Saturday. Nebraska obviously used to play that way. And, when Nebraska was dominating and winning the Big 8 and Big 12, they were a Big 10 team. And so this is how they've always done this. So this is like Schembechler, and I was reading up on I've got a bunch of books at home. I've got a Bo Schembechler biography. I read that last night a little bit. He started this in 1971 because he didn't have receivers, so he had ran the ball. His best players were running backs and linemen, and this is how Devaney did it. So, and Devaney was from Michigan, right? So there's a lot of roots here. Haven't found a lot of Osborne Schembechler ties yet. I'm still working on that, but this is a fun matchup in a lot of ways, a lot of history. But this Saturday may not be so much fun, but that's why we show up.
It is. What's interesting is, yes, I think, Evan, some of the low mood about this game is related to the losing streaks. I think some of it, and I'm not trying to say that Nebraska shouldn't be in the Big Ten, there's just a little bit of fatigue with the league. When you're not competitive or very competitive in it, I think sometimes you can kind of gloss over some of the bigger games because there's an expectation you're not going to win. And again, I think some of it is the approach that Nebraska's taking, and I understand why they're doing it. I think there's a thought process behind, we're just going to play the game this week, we're just going to play the team this week, we're going to focus on us. I think what they're trying to do is create building blocks that get the program to a place where maybe it can tap into that extra thing of emotion, but it's not a real emotional program, and that's okay. Like I just said, it was okay, but simultaneously, and I felt this same way with the Colorado week. I felt like there was a lot of pressure and that people were kind of uptight. I thought they played that way out in Colorado a little bit. And I feel like, again, this week there's a sense of just like, hey, Michigan's a good team. I'll be curious to see on Thursday, for example, if Rule makes an appeal to the crowd and says, hey, we need you. We need you to be loud and crazy on Saturday because we need the home field advantage to help us. I don't know if he's going to do that. Like, somebody may ask him, and then he might go, oh, yeah, that would be helpful. But I would be, like...
I don't think he should. I honestly don't think they should put that... Yeah, I don't believe they should put that much into this. Again, I think you've got to manage this season. And one of those things is, with the Colorado game early, and now this Michigan game, you don't want to burn these guys out. You don't want to get them so high, and then, okay, you lose. Oh...
Right.
It's over. We failed. No. Again, this is a tale of two seasons. 2 weeks is a bye week. The first half will be done. 6 games exactly. Then the last 6 come up. And I look at stuff like Teddy Prochaska, easing him back in. I believe a lot of things can start that when they come back from that bye week. The second half, a lot of games. I'm not going to say winnable.
No, it's a great point.
They're all winnable. They're all losable. But I'm just saying, don't ease into this thing.
We're going to define the team by what happens after the bye week more than we are before it.
Absolutely. By the end of the Iowa game, that's when you're going to know what the season was. Not this week. And I don't think you want to get too up for this because you're not capable of it yet. And part of managing a team in a season is knowing who you are. And you see them, you know who they are, but you know what they can be, but they aren't there yet.
I think that's good. I mean, I'll be curious to see how Nebraska comes out on Saturday. I do think they can hang around. I mean, Michigan's not going to run away and hide. Michigan is not probably going to show everything they've got, especially on defense, given that Michigan's goal is to win the national championship. That's their goal. And I'm not trying to knock Nebraska, but unless Michigan gets in a game with Nebraska where they're behind, or like it was in 2021, I'm not sure how much they have to pull out of the kitchen sink. They might just be able to run their base stuff on defense, pay attention to the option and make stops and then go win a game. Like, I don't think it would surprise any of us here if Nebraska loses 24-10 and it's 17-10 going into the fourth quarter and everybody's, this is pretty good. Like, it's not going to surprise anybody. No. I don't think it would surprise the fans. It would surprise me if Michigan's up 31-0 at half. It really would. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. So
that would have to be a lot of turnovers.
Oh, yeah, which is possible. But so I think this is a game where people are maybe cautiously optimistic that it could be somewhat competitive. But simultaneously, yeah, it just doesn't feel like, and I was thinking about this, it's not like 2021 Michigan. I remember that. No. It's not really like 2019 Ohio State, and Nebraska got its ass kicked that night. But you remember the game day was here, and everybody kind of knew, oh, man, Ohio State's really going to put it to them. But there was an excitement in the air, and, it's just so it's not like any of those games. I think people are probably taking the appropriate approach to the beginning of the Rule era. And Rule himself has been pretty cautious. Like, he gives good answers at the pressers, but he never, he's not going to push the button hard yet. But you think maybe after the bye week there's a moment where he's like, all right, we're going to hit the gas pedal just for this one game.
I think they're going to be pretty even keel all the way through it because, let's face it, they don't have enough yet to get excited and here we come, we're making a run. Right. They just don't have enough of anything right now. They got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And what they're going to try to do is put all those together and try to see if they can get a win every week. But no, I don't expect them to say come out of the bye week and go, here we go. Right. No, that might be me saying that, but it won't be him. And frankly, the Purdue and Northwestern games, they can lose those at home too. So we are not going to put W's next to those at all. But I just think it's. For me, Saturday is about, okay, you're trying to be physical. We'll see how physical you are this week. That's, to me, Well, that's what I'm looking for Saturday. Not win or lose, whatever. I think this is a good early measuring stick. Okay, all the things you've been doing in the spring and the Bloody Tuesdays, which I love. I think that's really interesting. But what does that mean right now? And so it's a good measuring stick.
I think the mood too is reflective of the growth that the program's made in the first year. Like I try to think about what was the mood when Nebraska's playing some of these top teams in recent years. Like when Ohio State came to town and game day was here, it was like, this is probably this is probably not appropriate for the skill level of these guys. When they went to Michigan in 2018, it was like, oh boy, and you could see it on the field. Like they looked different than Nebraska.
Yeah, they did.
When they went to Penn State in 2017, that was a good Penn State team, and it was like, oh man,
sure,
this is going to be ugly. And like I don't feel like they're going to get steamrolled, and I think that's a nod to what they've done through 4 games. And flaws and all, they're still they've been good against the run, and they've been good running the ball. And so yeah, they have the warts, quarterbacks unsettled, receivers unsettled, really. But they're making incremental growth, and so I feel like the mood is appropriate for that, to where this is not a total mess, but there's still a lot to be built here moving on.
I'm not sold on Michigan. I have them 3rd right in my Big Ten rankings. I did not pick them to win the Big Ten title. I think they're just a tick less talented than they were the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. We'll see. So far, they haven't run the ball the same way that they ran the ball the last 2 years. They ran it for 204 against Nebraska in 2021. I think 245 a couple of years ago, or last year when Mark Whipple got knocked down on the sidelines. I'll always remember that game for Chubba Purdy got hurt, and then about 4 seconds later, Mark Whipple got hurt.
Yeah,
and he literally would not spend a half out, and so he called the second half from the press box. It's just, I'll always remember that as the game where Mark Whipple got hurt. And right at the end, Jim Harbaugh decides to kick a field goal, and his own fans are booing him. And as it turns out, it was helpful because the following week, Jake Moody has to make 4 of them to beat Illinois, and that's how they make the college football playoffs. So,
I think I agree with you. I don't know who's going to win the Big Ten right now. I mean, I think Ohio State doesn't look great, but boy, when they had to have it last week in the hardest place, one of the hardest places to win. They did it, and 10 men on the field, 11, whatever. They really got it going when they had to. But
Penn State looks awfully good,
and they have Michigan at home.
They do.
They got to go to Columbus.
They do.
So
I think all 3 of them are pretty equal this year.
Could there be a 3-way tie?
Could be.
Where they all beat each other.
Yep. And then it goes to, I don't even know. It goes to something. But if they all beat each other and they all have 1 loss, then there's no head-to-head. I think the next thing is like divisional record, which they would all tie in. And then it would go to
point differential, maybe?
Eventually it gets down to that, and that's where I think Penn State's going to have the advantage because Michigan just doesn't have a desire to run opponents off the field.
And then the playoff committee can take whoever they want. They don't have to abide by any
no question
tiebreaker.
They did it in 2016 when Penn State won the Big Ten title and they took Ohio State. We'll see. I mean, I agree with you. I watched the second half of the Ohio State game. I didn't think they were going to win the game, and then at the very end, Notre Dame drops a pick. 2 big mistakes at the end.
Yeah.
They run out of there with the win, and we'll see where it goes. I don't know. I like the fact that Nebraska's running option plays and old school power offense stuff. This is it's about as bad as the receivers have ever been. I didn't cover the 04 team. I think both of you did. And I remember that there were guys playing receiver who never played receiver again at Nebraska. Right?
That's right.
The Bill Callahan's first year. But this is about as depleted as I've ever seen it. They're so not confident in one of the guys that they're moving him to running back. And they need wide receivers, and they're moving him to running back. So it's a mess.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I wanted to ask you about. I'm not trying to hijack your podcast here, but the old school plays. You found a couple. I was reading your tweets. They call tweets now. They call X's. I don't know.
Posts.
You found some plays from the 80s that they're using now.
They are. So one of them, Matt Rule on Monday said he had never run a 41 toss pitch before. And basically what a 41 toss pitch is it's a toss back into the middle of the line. You don't see it very often. Florida used to run it with Fred Taylor. Michael Severe, former World-Herald, a friend of the program, former World-Herald guy, said that Jeremy Hill at LSU used to run it too. Basically, it's a toss back into the middle of the field. Nebraska used to run it all the time. And Tom Osborne developed it. And they actually, you remember the 91 Nebraska-Oklahoma game. They got a fourth down conversion here in Lincoln. Same play. It was a toss pitch back to Calvin Jones. Then on the next play, it's a sprint draw, and they win the game. So I don't know where they got the play from, presumably Ron Brown. And then the other play they ran, other teams have run, but it was...
Isn't that interesting, though?
Yeah.
And I think it is Ron Brown.
I'm sure it is. Or it's T.O. through Ron Brown.
Yeah, but I just feel like, isn't that interesting that they're willing to do that?
Yeah.
I some people say, well, what are we doing? You're going back to letting your Osborne coach a team. No, it's good to throw a couple wrinkles in there. People don't see that stuff.
Isn't it Mike Riley 2015 when they adjusted to Tommy Armstrong and tried to win games with a mobile quarterback?
I don't know that they used the old offense.
They did not.
But I guarantee
they did a really good job too.
The guy Pelini would never do that. He wanted nothing to do with the old Husker stuff.
Right.
So Callahan didn't either. So,
If folks who want to go back and watch those games, that was from the '88 Arizona State game, which was a really good game in the first half, and Nebraska took over in the second half. But if you go back and you go to YouTube and you watch 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, prior to Tommy getting there, so those years, they run a lot of that stuff. Now, when Tommy gets there, and Tommy would obviously speak to this better than I ever could, they started running more option because he was so good at it. Like, he was really good at it. And then they started running the counter tray a lot because Lawrence Phillips was really good at that one play. And so I feel like they started running fewer plays because Tommy was so good that you didn't have to do some of the other things. But I love run game way more than pass game. And you have 100 years of history on run game, and you only have when did teams really start passing it? In the 80s in college, 70s.
Oh, 80s. It depends on who you're talking about. Yeah, it was more 70s.
Howard Schnellenberger.
80s is more. But yeah, you had the Pac-12 is always throwing it. But yeah, if you're talking about the Big 8 schools, never nobody ever.
Right till Pat Jones and Gundy, and then they started throwing.
Yeah, well, Mike Godfrey at KU came in there in '83, and he was throwing bombs and stuff. But I just think it's interesting that because here they are, and they talked about it after the game last week. Well, we're running some option. We got Ron Brown teaching us this and that, and receivers are blocking, and these are things you can't do on the fly.
No,
and,
hard to do. And
they don't have an option quarterback. He didn't even think about pitching it. He's like, I got it. Just a joke about Eric Crouch. I got it. Boom. and Jamal Lord. Yeah, don't worry, I got it. Boom. But it was the best offense. He was the best running back.
Yeah.
Eric Crouch was the best running back.
Sure, he was.
He was the best running back in the country. But it's just funny. They don't have an option. They don't know how to run the option, and they don't have an option quarterback necessarily. And they've kind of got one running back, and they don't have an offensive line that knows how to do all that stuff.
Right.
So I find it interesting. They're not going to be able to do that all the time.
No.
But obviously what you saw, they're trying to throw in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's an interesting coaching job at work here. I'm really curious to see how it goes. And when I talk about that bye week, I'm really curious to see what they do during that bye week. They may try to, here's some stuff that we can work on every day. I'm curious to see how that came out of that bye week.
Me too, and I'm curious to see how healthy Heinrich Haarberg is. I mean, he's going to go into this game. I think he'll be the starter. We feel that way.
I think so.
If they run this offense and they run him 17 times against Michigan, he's going to feel it. Like it's going to be a physical experience, and the option's great. I think it's an awesome offense. You better have tough men to run it. Nobody was tougher than Scott Frost. I mean, he was probably the toughest, but Tommy was really tough. Brooke was tough. Brooke played through.
Crouch was really tough.
He was tough too.
Nobody got hurt more. He hit more than him in
Tommy
his 4
was
years.
tough.
And he didn't really miss a start. Eric played his entire he didn't miss any starts.
He played all 4 years,
Yeah.
and he got.
Nobody really knew how hurt he was
I mean,
because he wouldn't say.
I will say, Tommy. A lot of plays didn't get touched either because they were blocked so well, but. I just think it's you're right, and whoever plays, whether it's Sims or Harbaugh, how Hoiberg, so not Harbaugh, I think that mistake a lot this week.
I wouldn't mind Jim Harbaugh taking over a drive.
But it's they're both going to get banged up. They're both going to be at the end of the year going, oh my God, put me in the spa, or the hot tub, the hot pool. But you know what I mean? I just think they're going to have to play hurt, and this team doesn't have a lot of going for it, so it's kind of like a Band-Aid every week, or
right.
Okay, what leak can we plug up this week because we have and so it's going to be hard to win. Well, some of those games because the defenses are going to know, hey, they can't do this and they can't do that. So we're going to make them throw it. And the sooner they get those receivers out there, the better, the young guys, because I think you're going to see the Big Ten defenses are going to say, nope, you're not running that. You're not running the quarterback. Sorry. And if you can block us, go ahead and try, but we're not giving you that.
Yep.
And you're going to have to throw it. So
No question.
it's going to be a grind. But
It is. The next 2 weeks are going to be really hard. They're going to play two elite defensive lines. Illinois is not a very good defense, but they're a great defensive line.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. All right, moving on to basketball. Fred Hoiberg and Amy Williams did an opening season presser yesterday. Wilson Moore went to the practice. He and Joel Lorenzi will have a half-court press podcast here later today. I always watch press conferences, though, and I'll just say this. This is the longest Fred Hoiberg preseason press conference he's had.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
And he really seemed to like his team. I got that sense.
yes, you can read coaches and whether they want to talk about it or they don't, and he did. And I'm intrigued by it. I don't know what they got. I know some of the guys they got. Obviously, Tominaga's on fire right now, and he's coming off a great summer, and he's all of a sudden he's coming to practice and he's yelling and being a leader and shooting threes and he hasn't stopped. But there's some other guys that they're returning but they've got a lot. The new guy, the center Marist from Bradley.
Yeah.
Can he hold up in the Big Ten? How's he going to do? I mean,
It's a great question.
they're not talking about everybody. He's a great leader. Everybody's a great leader right now. Everybody's talking in practice. Everybody's doing the right things. First day of practice. So, but I think there's some interesting pieces. Can they play the half court? Can they play defense? Especially down low. What are they going to have? I think. But Juwan Gary gives him a great defensive player. I think right out of the gate. Point guard, I don't know, what that's going to be, but I don't know. I mean, what was your impression?
Well, I would say that I think he really likes his team. He talked about the culture of the team. He feels like he knows what they're going to get, and they seem confident, and he seems confident. A lot of and I'll kind of take the temperature of the beat post too. And Wilson's relatively new to it, so I think he's kind of experiencing it for the first time. But I think within that, there's a sense of this team might be pretty good. There might be some depth there. When he said we're able to run 3 different groups and they're all equal, you can take that positively or negatively. You can say, well, what that means is you don't have like 2 or 3 guys that are so good that you're like, holy crap. Because if you did that with Creighton's 3 groups wouldn't be equal. Like, the top three, the five starters for Creighton would kick the ass of the bottom five.
I took it as
A good thing.
A good thing because I think it gives you depth.
Right.
And then to win the Big Ten or to win games in the Big Ten, you don't have to be flashy. You don't have to out talent necessarily people.
That's very true.
You got to outplay them.
That's
you got to execute them, and you got to be. You get guys. Okay, he's in foul
It's
trouble.
not the Big 12.
You can't slip off if you get in foul trouble. So, yeah, I took it, and I
That's
think
a very good
they're going
point.
to play pretty good defense. I liked what they did at the end of the year. I think a lot of people did, and a kid like Lawrence is kind of a combo guard, and the way he emerged, there's a lot there, and I'm anxious to see what he comes up with. So, but they're going to be fun, and I think that the schedule is their best friend. They didn't overload it, and they didn't need it. They needed to go the other way, and I think they're going to be able to get a little momentum. We talked about that last week. So I'm anxious to see. It's early. It's still September. Everybody's on fire. Everybody's great. But yeah, I think you can read moods, and I think you can tell if a coach is trying to fool you or maybe trying to fool himself. But I didn't get that feeling yesterday.
Totally agree.
I would just add, I'm not in the weeds with it as much as you guys are, but when he said they could play small, they could play big, or they could play gigantic too, like that's something that Nebraska just has not been able to do. It feels like every year they're undersized, and Derek Walker was that guy forever, and he was undersized, and they kind of make it work and play positionless. So like, if they have actually that versatility in game to adjust and tap into Fred's basketball IQ, I mean that's only a good thing. And then too, like he was relaxed to add on to the mood. Like his explanation of the story that his son Sam put out on Twitter about the dancing thing that he did. Like he leaned into that. He was laughing and telling stories and being detailed. And yeah, I agree. It did not feel like a guy who was on a hot seat so much as it was a guy who just enjoyed being around his team.
That's a good point. I agree with that. Yeah, the size thing hurt him in the Big Ten tournament against Minnesota. It hurt him. Minnesota was big everywhere, and it cost him a few possessions. There's no other way to put it.
Yep.
Okay, women's basketball. I'll say this really quickly. Amy Williams, I think, likes her team. They have an NCAA tournament caliber team. The couple changes that I will note from last year's team, and I don't think it's bad. Allison Widener will be back. I think Amy feels like they've had to kind of throttle her down at times because Allison is so tough and all these other things. But I think they feel like she's going to be good. Darian White is the kind of player. She's a transfer in from Montana State. Is exactly the kind of guard that Nebraska wants and needs. She's 5'5". She's not really big, but she will get down in a defensive stance and she will get underneath a Big Ten guard. And she will, and this is true in women's basketball, not quite as much in men's, Darian's going to be able to run down rebounds that in women's basketball, posts don't always run down. There's just no other way to put it because the post is 6'1" versus 6'9". And so you have to have, it really helps to have a small guard on the floor who could go run down rebounds. And you'll notice that in a lot of teams, there's a 5'5" or a 5'6" guard that has 5 rebounds. It's because they're fast. So Darian White will do that. You'll see more full court defense, I think, from them, more aggressive full court defense, not necessarily designed to turn it over, but to compress the shot clock. And question comes down to the posts. I mean, Alexis Markowski, you know what she's going to bring. She's really good. She needs a running mate. She had it last year in Isabel Bourne. Now they have Annika Stewart. Apparently she's spent more time down in the post, which is good. They had 2 freshmen, Jessica Petrie. Brent Wagner wrote a really good story on her. I don't know if you saw that quote. It was great. From Australia. She's scoring challenge. She's not a scorer, but maybe an enforcer. And then this kid from St. Louis, Natalie Potts, unique person. They really need her to be good.
What's an appropriate expectation for that team this year?
I've always I feel like I've gotten this right in the last couple of years. I would say they would be a 21 to 22 win team and a 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think with Shelley back and also Markowski, and it needs to be an NCAA team. And then in the league's good. It'll be
great.
So it's going to be tough. But I think they'll be able to hold their own, especially at home. grab a couple on the road, and I think have a decent seed in the Big Ten, and then go to the NCAAs. But I mean, that's as soon as Jazz Shelley said she's coming back, that's what you thought. Okay, didn't get in this year, yes. So, I love it. I've been to those games. We've got tickets to those games too. My wife loves going to there. It was. We know Maddie Kroll is. My daughter played with her OSA way back in the day, so we know that we've got tickets, and we're gonna run them back and see it again this year. But they're a lot of fun, and
They are.
It's good to have good basketball. It just makes everything better. We all love our football. We love our football, but sometimes it doesn't get you through the winter. It helps to have good basketball.
It really does. I mean, of the NU and CU teams, 3 of the 4 are going to make the NCAA tournament, I think, and one of them could make the Final Four, and the other 2 could, get to the second round or something like that. Same with baseball. They have a scrimmage against UNO. It's a brand new team in a lot of ways.
Yep.
More UNO, we can't escape that Nebraska-Omaha matchup. Did they play like 10 games last year?
They only play one next year.
Omaha. And they have a hard time with them, too.
They have only one next year.
I'm going to give you a more
That's a
specific
lot of fun.
question.
It's a lot of fun.
Offense. You lose 2 incredible hitters from the middle of your lineup. Where does that come from?
Well, they have one All Big Ten player back. That's Gabe Swanson. He was a walk-on from Iowa who hit power numbers like Scott Schreiber did in 2016. So he's kind of the known. Beyond that, you're looking for the next step from Dylan Carey, who was a starter at freshman at third. You're looking for a step forward for Josh Caron, who they like is the guy at catcher. Cole Evans was a former Creighton outfielder who's at Nebraska who had a pretty decent season. But, yeah, they're replacing more than half the lineup. I think Ty Stone, who's an Iowa Western transfer, he got some All-America pub there. He's going to be their first baseman, most likely. But they have some holes to fill in the outfield for sure. Caden Brumbaugh was a guy who was at Oklahoma State previously who got hurt in the preseason and missed the entire season. He probably would have been a factor for Nebraska last year, so I think they'll look at him quite a bit. And then it's a number of junior college guys and transfers, and you just kind of start to figure it out as you go. So I think that's the one side. But, I mean, quite honestly, the pitching side is just as fascinating to me. I mean, you replace almost your entire rotation. You've got Will Walsh, who was a two-way guy, kind of part-time Sunday guy. Jackson Brockett, who was a part-time Sunday guy, back. Otherwise, you have no clear-cut ace at this point. And so to me, I think one of the themes that I'll be looking for Friday and through the offseason is going to be the Rob Childress effect.
Yes, I totally agree. That's the big thing for next year. When they went to the tournament, the first-year Bolt or second-year Bolt?
21.
When they went to Arkansas.
First full year.
Yeah.
21, yeah.
The pitching was a giant reason. They had really good starters and a guy out of the pen. Is it crazy to think that they relied too much on the big two last year in the lineup? Did they just did some of the guys sit back and go, well, they'll get the big hit?
I mean, they had a school record, whatever it was, 93, 94 home runs.
Yeah.
And Bryce and Max combined for, 45 of those,
Yeah,
roughly.
I just wonder sometimes you can kind of rely on them too much. Maybe I wonder if that might be something that maybe helps them this year.
Well, and to be specific, when I say the Rob Childress effect, to me, there are like 5 or 6 guys on this roster, pitchers, who have filthy stuff, like strikeout stuff, but they don't always know where the ball's going. And one of the things that Childress is always really good at was, it's his KISS method. He always mentions it. Keep it simple, stupid. Repeat the delivery. What can you do so you can repeat something over and over again? So, like, I look at a lot of these guys who, again, they don't always know where the ball's going. If he can harness some of that stuff, like, that's how you go from guys who are sort of midweek options maybe to potentially frontline guys. So like the development piece is really fascinating.
I think that the staff, I think attitude is so important for that program. And I always wondered when Van Horn was there, if Van Horn was a no-nonsense, he would kick your ass if you needed to. But I think as a head coach, you can't always be that guy. And I think Childress was that guy a lot of times for Van Horn, and he was the pitching coach, but his pitchers were such hard asses that they were competitors that I think he kept rubbed off on the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder now that Childress, maybe as the guy last year, couldn't quite do that. Now he's all in.
Yeah, they call him Bad Rob now
I
because he's
think
more on
that guy
hands-on
comes
on
back,
the field.
That could go through the whole team, and whereas Will Bolt has to manage everybody, and he can't beat everybody over the head all the time. Right. So something to watch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely will. All right, let's get to picks.
Yep.
Evan made a move last week, going 9-1.
There we go.
Tom's still ahead, 31-9 for him. Evan's 28-12, and I'm at 26-14.
I took it on the chin with Notre Dame, Ohio State, and there was another one I
Clemson
missed.
and Florida State.
Yeah,
both looked like they were going to go.
If the guy doesn't get sacked and fumbles,
a couple coin flips.
I win. Yeah. Sorry, Dabo.
Well, nobody's weeping for him.
Nobody is.
No, he's kind of like Jimbo Fisher. He's just
Right.
That's right.
USC and Colorado.
SC.
Yeah, USC.
One of my 5 favorite fight songs.
Oh, it's a great one.
Great one. Georgia at Auburn.
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia.
I will take Georgia as well. I also took USC. Kansas, undefeated. At Texas, undefeated. Texas is awfully good.
I feel like Kansas can hang, but I got to go with Texas.
Yeah, I think this is a different Texas.
I do too.
I think it's going to go down to the wire, though.
Lots of points. Thinking points? I'm thinking points. Mm-hmm. LSU at Mississippi. It wasn't a great week, folks. So we got to go deep into the bullpen.
I'm going Ole Miss.
Okay. Ooh.
Same here. Ooh. Yeah. I'm not sold on LSU yet.
I agree.
They barely beat Arkansas. Arkansas is talented, though.
Who are you going?
LSU.
All right.
Illinois at Purdue. This is a pick 'em. Ryan Walters Bowl? I don't know what it is.
Is it at where?
It's at Purdue.
Oh, I'm looking ahead to Nebraska. Oh, I know.
Yeah, Illinois.
That's a tough one, though.
It is.
They can beat them.
Oh, I think it'll be Illinois. Yeah. Purdue's favored by like 1. But
that's what I mean. It could go either way.
it could. Clemson and Syracuse.
Jeez.
Syracuse is undefeated. Pretty good.
At Syracuse?
Yeah, at Syracuse in the Dome.
Oh, God.
And they've had Clemson's number occasionally through the years. I'm still going Clemson.
All right. Clemson for Evan. I have Syracuse.
I'll go Syracuse. I think.
Okay.
Hangover game.
Yeah.
They put all their chips on Florida State.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Could be.
Utah, Oregon State. This is this is at Corvallis. I'm going to take Oregon State.
Another really tough one. I feel like Utah's physical game travels. I know their quarterback situation's unclear as well, but Utah.
Okay.
I'm going to go Beavers. They're really good. They'll be home.
Notre Dame at Duke.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame.
Duke.
Ooh. Look at you.
I think that game with Ohio State's going to leave a
You
physical mark.
You might be right.
Maybe so.
And Duke's actually going to have a full stadium for once. Florida at Kentucky. This has been a very contentious game in recent years. Very contentious. Teams getting in fights, all kinds of stuff. It's just been a contentious game. They don't like each other at all. At Kentucky.
Cats.
Okay.
Same.
I'm with you. It'll be interesting to watch, though, because these two teams hate, and Florida a lot of teams hate Florida. LSU hates Florida. Georgia hates Florida. They're just sort of, they fight a lot, and they get whatever. And the last one, Michigan, Nebraska.
Michigan.
Michigan. But I think it's close.
Michigan. Would you take Michigan by the points, which is 18.5?
I think Nebraska covers that.
So do I.
Yeah, I like it.
I just don't think Michigan cares that much.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think they're fine winning however they win. They know if they win every game, they're going to the CFP. It doesn't matter what the margin is. That is our Pick 6 podcast for this week. We'll be back next week, maybe on Wednesday, maybe on Tuesday, I don't know, to talk Michigan and then to preview our wonderful trip, you and I, Evan, to Illinois.
Friday night.
Take care.